Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalat, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. And today, as per our author, is the best time in history to become an entrepreneur, and you will hear why. My guest is Lou Shipley. He's a three-time tech CEO, investor, and a professor at Ivy League University. He will share that with us as well. And he built the first sales curriculum actually, and is known for his entrepreneurial sales courses. He has a new book in 2026, and he's going to tell us a lot about that. And he will highlight the stories of unlikely entrepreneurs and how they found success. Lou, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nina. Nice to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you went into entrepreneurship? Have you always been like an entrepreneur, or you worked first in tech background, as your bio said? What led you into sales, into this field where back then when you started your career?
Yeah, sure. Well, I started my career in Wall Street, and I spent 3 years in New York City, and I really didn't like big companies. I felt like, I was sort of a number, and so I ended up going to business school, and I took a class at Harvard Business School called Entrepreneurial Finance, which was this class that sort of covered the idea of how do you finance an idea? How do you create something out of nothing? And it really got me passionate about joining startups or starting a company. And I was a joiner. My first time, I joined a startup called Avid Technology, which was a digital video editing company that grew like crazy. It went from 0 to 400 million in sales in 5 years. And once I had experienced an explosive growth startup, I moved to Japan. I opened the Asia Pacific office, lived in Japan for 3 years. Once I had experienced, what a growth company was like, there was no way I was going back to a big company. Now, over my career, I got acquired by big companies. I just didn't stay very long. And so I've always been interested in how entrepreneurs disrupt businesses or in markets and industries, and spent in my six startups disrupting various different businesses. And then we decided with my co-author Trish Favreau to write this book about unlikely entrepreneurs because we thought we wanted to share inspiring stories for people who wondered, could I do that? Could I be an entrepreneur? Could I start a business? So that's why we wrote the book.
Amazing. And when is the book coming? Is it already
Well,
available
it's
for?
already out. It's been out since February 3rd, and it's been one or two on the Amazon Business Entrepreneurship list for a while. So I'm actually, it's for me, it's a new startup. I'm a B2B infrastructure software person by trade. And I spent all my years in tech, and now writing a book and learning how to sell a book has been a really interesting, eye-opening experience, kind of like your own startup. So yeah, it's out and about and available.
Yeah. So when you look back, we're gonna go and talk about, being also professor, and I love that. But yourself as a hands-on entrepreneur, built so many companies. When you look back, or I don't know, somebody ask you for advice, are there any specific industries where you found it's maybe easier currently, or last 10, 15 years was maybe tech, or some industries that are moving faster and larger amounts, and it's more needed than others? Are there some top industries that you think entrepreneurs are highly to succeed in? Although I do believe there are successful entrepreneurs in every industry, but are there
Hmm.
any industries that you see that are specifically maybe booming, or kind of a little bit easier because the market is going that way?
Well, traditionally, I always approached it as I'd like to disrupt a sleepy industry. So for us, even though with the Avid, my first startup, it was the video and film industry, which hadn't had a lot of innovation in 60, 70 years. And so applying a digital version of an editing system was a real breakthrough. So I tend to like to go after sleepy businesses that are big and bureaucratic and have institutional rigidity and are arrogant. And because entrepreneurs aren't, well, they shouldn't be arrogant because you may be out of business any day. It's so hard. But I like being on the side of the disruptor. Here's an ex interesting data point for you. I found out the largest order for my book so far is I got 150 order for 150 books from a company called HP Hood, which is a dairy company in America, a famous company, and it's 180 years old. And I thought, wow, my book is going to be popular with, venture capitalists and early stage companies and entrepreneurs. Turns out a 180-year-old company was interested in this. I'm like, why is that? Well, when I talked to the CEO, I learned that there's 33 million businesses in the US, and there's only 1,000 that are over 100 years old. Why is that? The market is so competitive, it's hard to be around for 100 years. So he found the stories of unlikely entrepreneurs inspiring because he said, we have to keep innovating as a dairy company to be relevant in today's market. And their top products are now almond milk, almond breeze, and lactate,
Yes.
not just. So it's just entrepreneurship is relevant for everybody. It's not just startups. So even
Yeah.
it's just so hard to make it to over 100 years in any country.
Yeah, I love that. So basically, not a specific industry, but you like to target industries that didn't have innovation for some time, and then how we can bring innovation, but people are still using and still are active in a way, or they would love this innovation and that. So that's really interesting. I like that you shared that. Thank you. And I'm interested really to know, as you said, you took a course, you started in Harvard, and now you're a professor. How I'm always wondered. I didn't study Ivy League, of course. I studied in Europe, but I was always wondering with MBA and many degrees, how much of it do they bring real entrepreneurship into their courses? So can you talk a little bit to us about, what are you passionate about teaching the students and bringing that real, experience, street knowledge as well? Because building a business, you can learn the theory, but you have to go out there and prospect and sell.
Yeah.
So how did you balance that, and how you created your curriculums?
Well, thank you for asking that question. And if any of your listeners are interested in teaching, I could, connect on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to talk to them about how to do it because you don't want to wait till you're my age to start. You really need to do it. I've been doing it for 20 years. So while I was a CEO, I was teaching first at MIT and then at Harvard. And one of the things I noticed is that MIT had one class in sales. So I taught that one for 10 years. Harvard didn't really have much in sales. They had sort of stuff that bordered on marketing and sales, but not sales per se. So I came in 10 years ago and started with one class. There's 900 students in a class, and started with about 40 students, one course. This year, I'll teach 4 courses, and it's over 500 students. The class size has stayed the same, but it's gotten more popular because founders realize they need to understand how to sell, and they also need to know how to manage the sales team. So, and part of the reason is that sales, and I don't know what it's like in Zanzibar, but I do know what it's like in the US, that people have a disdain for sales or a misunderstanding of sales. They think it's something that it really isn't. So we teach with my colleague Mark Roberge and others, we teach like what real enterprise selling is all about and how it's more about listening than it is about pitching. It's more about understanding if your solution meets somebody's need than it is just throwing up and
Yeah.
telling your story. So I think the
Or
students realize.
going door to door, like we imagine some direct selling or something. We are all terrified, and most entrepreneurs, I don't want to sell. I hate sales. I don't want to be pushy. And I'm like, but like there is no success without sales. So you just have to change mindset about it and understand that we are all selling something all day. If you go for a job interview, I mean, you're selling your skills to get that job. So
Exactly.
it's just understanding that. But that's very interesting. I was really curious to know. And congratulations, from 40 students to 500 students. And I think new generations are understanding as well that, hey, we need to get into sales and speaking and listening now more with podcasts and internet that wasn't there 20 years ago. So I think new generations, they understand how important it is. So I think it's super cool that you're bringing, and there are professors out there that have a real hands-on experience and bringing that to the classroom.
Well, there's other schools that are now teaching it as well. I think they realize the one difference. I graduated 35 years ago. I was one of 2 people out of 900 that went to a pre-revenue startup. Now a lot of students are doing this, so entrepreneurship is much more popular. But I mean, one of the things, I don't know if you've ever seen a sign that says "no soliciting," which is a euphemism for sales, like no sales. I've never seen that sign for any other business function. You've never seen like a no marketing or no finance or no
Yeah.
strategy. It's only sales. So sales is really misunderstood. And I think the reason the classes are popular is that people want to understand, well, what really is this? Because if you're a founder, you're going to be selling. You're going to be selling your customers, your investors, your employees, just as you say, you're always selling. So why not think about how to lean into it and get good at it, and how do I improve it and help, get better all the time at it.
Yeah. And if we talk about that real hands-on knowledge, is there something for you that I don't know, it can be something very simple. I remember for me when I started, I really wish then when I started consulting and coaching and I started working with entrepreneurs, I was just like, I wish somebody told me, you just have to find which prospecting work for you and prospect more. Like it's not a rocket science. You just have to prospect more. So is there something in your experience building a business that was like, aha, this is actually simpler. This is not so complicated. I wish somebody told me that you like to simplify for your students as well.
Well, first, I think, look, if you're going to run a company, there's usually two big departments in the company. You're going to build a product, and probably an engineering team. And, I have a software background, or a sales team. Those are the two big areas. And I'm going to be doing a webinar on moving from sales to CEO and why it's so important to have sales skills to become a good CEO. But I think that I've seen in the last few years, students come into the class afraid of it. And then once they learn what sales really is and how to get better at it with best practices, then they love it. Then they fall in love with it. Like, I don't really want to do anything other than selling, because they've overcome this fear. And now they realize it's really important for the company valuation. It's important for how easy it is to recruit people. If you're a growth company, people want to be part of it, and it gives people, opportunities to grow in their career. And at a young age, you can have fantastic experiences that's different than working in a big company. It's going to take you a long time to
Yeah.
ascend a big company, and you got to get good at the politics there. And what's nice about early stage startups, it's really just you're betting on yourself, and you're betting your team can win in the market.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. And tell us a little bit more. Your book is Unlikely Entrepreneurs. So I would like to know, there are many people out there that didn't even believe they can be an entrepreneur. Usually
Mhm.
it's those introvert people who say, my lights went off, who says, oh, like, I am introvert, it's hard for me. But are there some traits that you find that most entrepreneurs have in common, no matter if they're extrovert, introvert, in which industry? What is something that makes entrepreneurs succeed?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that question, because I was teaching at MIT and I started to work with a woman named Trish Favreau. She called me with the idea for the book because she had had a father who was really skilled but afraid to be an entrepreneur. And she, for the longest time, thought about why was dad, afraid of this and didn't think an entrepreneur was for him. And I think we all sort of have that question, could I start this business? Is this idea worthy of a business? And so we assembled 17 different entrepreneurs we profile across different industries. So it's not really about Silicon Valley AI billionaires. This is more about like a woman who runs a tire store who lives next in the town over from me. Or I have one entrepreneur who sells caskets online, and he's got a more than $10 million business selling caskets online. And then we cover both for-profit and nonprofit entrepreneurs, somebody who wants to start a nonprofit to make the world a better place. The lessons you go through are very similar in starting a nonprofit as it is a for-profit business. So I guess the few things that I would say is curiosity is the first one that is a mark of a great entrepreneur. You're curious to think, could we really do this? And thinking outside the box, thinking in an unconventional way. And then I think determination and tenacity are the other two. And then passion is the third one. People that are really great entrepreneurs are really passionate, and they share their passion with others, which is why others want to join them in their journey.
Interesting. And now, speaking of passion, I am wondering because you sold several of your businesses. I found
Mhm.
it, especially when we build the first business, sometimes we are very emotionally involved in that business. And we don't want to sometimes delegate at the beginning. It's very difficult for us. We
Yep.
micromanage, and it's a learning process. Depends, of course, on the person, but a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. How was it for you, your journey, and what do you see with a lot of entrepreneurs, and how to no matter your passion, but how to step away and understand this is the business I'm building, I can sell, but not be so emotionally involved about it. Because I feel the first one is the hardest. This was the hardest for me as well. And how was it for you? And what do you see also happening in this area?
Well, thank you for asking that question because it's such an interesting question of the sort of irony of this is the passion that you need to start something that no one else believes is even possible, but you prove it that you can as a founder. The skills you need to get the world to believe you have something that's worthy of buying and the business can generate sales is a totally different skill set than what it takes to be a really good CEO. And in the book, I talk about the floundering founder who is somebody who has built it, but then the business gets bigger than they are, and they can't stay in the middle of it anymore. They have to learn to delegate and build abstractions so that they're not in the middle of everything. And I work with a number of great founders that have made the transition to CEO. I work with David Friend. I'm on the board of Wasabi. He's done it multiple times. Zach Marides at Teamworks, Kevin Frechette at Fair Market. But most of the founders that I've worked with have really struggled with this, of letting go of their baby and letting someone else take it to the next stage. And we write a lot about this in the book because it's psychologically hard to let it go. But yeah, I think you just have to recognize that and then realize that your job changes as a company gets larger and you can't be in the middle of everything.
Yeah. It's kind of a little bit like, I don't want to say feeling like a failure, but like we feel that we should know everything because we started, we get maybe the idea, maybe you had a partner but for me also, I feel like if I have to give over my baby, it's like I'm failing, I'm not good enough to run it. And I don't think that that's absolutely not true. And we can see from, Jeff Bezos and huge entrepreneurs, everybody say I'm not the smart, I don't want to be smartest person in the room. I want to have smart people around me in different areas who are better than me to help me grow this further. And yeah, it's very interesting. And I see that you also work with so many entrepreneurs. And I feel it's just like a little bit feeling like we're not good enough to run this anymore. We should know it all. Maybe it's a little bit of our ego. I'm not sure. But it's definitely something I think entrepreneurs struggle with.
Well, and I think there isn't anything wrong with realizing that you might be just a great founder. That's hard enough. Most startups fail. Being both a great founder and a great CEO is very rare. So I don't think you should feel badly if you're only one of those things, because like I actually am a better CEO than a founder, but I work with a lot of founders and try and help them to become better CEOs, and they're such different jobs. One of the entrepreneurs we profile in the book is a fellow named Mark Fusco, who's a very successful public company CEO. And he talks about leadership and team building and what it takes to assemble a team of people with multiple skills, and you can't have all superstars. And it's a very sophisticated way to think about team building, realizing you're not in the middle, you're managing and assembling and keeping the pace of the organization, but you're not doing everything. And that's very different than being a founder.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that kind of perception and point of view as well. Lou, I want to ask you if there is something in the past when you were building your businesses that you wish someone told you like earlier, that you would succeed faster. Is there something that really
Yeah.
stood up for you, or you can think of at this moment, like, I really wish someone told me this. Like, I would succeed much faster if I knew this.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it is because I write about this in the book, and I have a business school classmate who runs a coaching business now. His name is Will Keller. And I guess I wish someone had told me to be more coachable the younger I was, and especially as a CEO. So I was not as coachable my first 6 or 7 years as CEO. I was way more coachable in my second 7 years. And as a result, the businesses were much more successful. I learned how to take coaching and not believe that I had all the right answers, but to listen to other people and listen to my team, listen to my investors, listen to my customers. And I think coachability, and I will only join boards now or advisory boards if I believe the founder or CEO is coachable, because if they're not, it's pretty much a waste of time. Because
Yeah.
if you're not coachable, you think you have all the answers, you don't. You just don't. And it's not going to be much fun to be part of that. So I would say, yeah, try and be more coachable, open-minded to criticism. And it's hard. I don't like, still don't like being criticized, but I recognize it's important to accept it and recognize that people have different views than you do and that you can learn from them.
Yeah, again, I think it's step out, especially a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, people with ideas. It's like, yeah, I think part of us feel like we are giving our power because we admit we don't know, or and yeah, I mean, coaching, mentoring helped me so much, and it still is
Mm.
up to this day. And there is always next level, and you always think, maybe I don't need this, and then you work with someone, you realize, wow, like this is just the best thing ever. So I absolutely agree. So as we are wrapping up, I just want to ask you, Lou, to share with everyone listening where they can, the full name of the book, where they can get the book. I think it will benefit so many of entrepreneurs. It's real knowledge there. Here it
It's
is for
called
those watching the video, Unlikely Entrepreneurs.
Unlikely Entrepreneurs, Wins, Losses, and Crucial Lessons in Building Great Companies. And I do just want to mention we cover losses. It's not just wins, because I have
Mm,
found the second thing I would say to answer your question is what have you learned or what is that your failures actually do teach you a lot more than your wins. And as so I cover some of the major failures in my career, including being fired as a CEO of a hot tech company, of hiring the wrong people, doing all the things that flailing founders do or flailing CEOs. So I wanted to cover that because it's not just wins, it's losses. And I think the more you realize that your job as a CEO founder is to sort of have a culture of continuous improvement, that you can always get better no matter how well you did in the last quarter, is I think the culture that you want to sort of create in your company of continuous improvement, and it'll attract a lot of people, and it'll also keep away people you don't want working with you that don't want to constantly improve because you want people to keep getting better all the time.
yeah, yeah. That's a great advice. Thank you so much, Lou. As we are wrapping up, is there one more thing that maybe it's important for entrepreneurs? I'm sure there's so many things we can read in your book, and we will, myself included. Is there something you think it's very important as a message to entrepreneurs listening, as a final advice, but we didn't have time and we didn't mention it?
Well, I guess I would hope, and Trish, my co-author, hopes that you'll find the stories of these entrepreneurs inspiring and realizing that you can do it. And one of the chapters in the book is called Endings and Beginnings, and it's about the data show the most likely success rate for entrepreneurship, for the age that's best for starting a business is actually 44. I mean, we still have this notion you got to drop out of college and start Facebook or Microsoft. But the reality is the data supports starting at 44, which means you've probably been in some companies, saved a little money, have a network, have learned the good and bad of companies. So if you're thinking about it, hopefully you'll find the book inspiring, and we hope the book is inspirational.
Thank you for that. And I love the data. Actually, I read it recently somewhere, and I remember it was also about your experience, but also about your network, your maturity, people that can help you, an accountant, a lawyer, and you're
No,
doing
yeah.
things so much faster. So if you guys are listening, if you're under 44, your best years for entrepreneurship are yet to come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Lou, so much for your time. I appreciate it having Harvard professor for the first time. This is an honor for me. And thank you really for taking the time and sharing your knowledge
Yeah.
with us.
Great to spend time with you. Thank you. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you so much, Lou. Everyone, make sure to give us some likes, hearts, comment what would you like to learn and listen about entrepreneurship next in the future episodes. And as always, share it with at least one more entrepreneur that can benefit from this podcast episode. Thank you for listening. I see you in the next one.